Kelly. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh no. Trying to load, so I had to resend it to me. I got it then. Did a workaround.
Why don't you speak and see if people can hear you?
You're muted, Mayor.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Hi. Sorry. A lot going on today. We have our, I'm going to call this meeting to order.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, are we starting then on the public part of the meeting? Are we now, it's okay to
Roll call, Mayor.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to call this meeting of the Council Economic Development Committee to order and ask, I think, Ms. Phyllis to call the roll.
Councilmember Mendel,
Here.
Councilmember Salinas,
And just for the record, I am not in New Mexico. I happen to be in Hayward. So
thank you, and Mayor Holliday.
Here. So
Thank
which
you.
neighborhood is that in then, that rock?
this is in the north side of Hayward,
Nice.
right behind the Sunset Street.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I've hiked it very often.
Okay. Are there any is there any member of the public who wants to make a comment? Are there any members of the public here?
We do have one attendee, Meredith Walker. Are you interested in making a public comment? Let me read a slide about public comments first. Maybe that would help. And that is, if you'd like to make a public comment during the meeting, you may need to press *6 to unmute. And then if you're joining by phone, click *9 to raise a hand to speak. Otherwise, to make a public comment.
Well, I'm just here to listen. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Welcome. All right. So there are no other members of the public or anyone who wants to make a public comment. So we'll go ahead and move on to our, let's see, approval of the minutes from our July 6th meeting. Any council member, well, go ahead. Council member Mendel.
So moved.
Second by Council member Salinas. Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, thank you for the thorough minutes. And we will go on to our item number 2, which is an update. This is going to be oral. I think we did not get a report on this one, but on the vacant building registration ordinance.
Yes, this will be a PowerPoint presentation by our code enforcement manager, Phil Nichols, and he will go ahead and give an update. I believe he's going to try to share his screen with you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Mayor, council members, and committee members. How are you guys this afternoon?
We're all here anyway. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen here. I'm still having a little difficulties.
Is he a panelist or co-host to be able to present? Okay.
Yeah, looks like it's disabled on the other end though.
And then you could just tell me when in advance, Phil.
Can you share? Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, Paul, you have it. Okay, great. Yeah, I can't, for some reason, I can't share my screen. So I'll start here. And we can fast forward this, Paul, to the next screen because I'll just start on that next slide. That's just an intro. So as you know, city adopted the Article 29 of Chapter 10, the vacant property ordinance last year, towards the end of last year, November. And we had anticipated actually on starting this program towards February of this year. And the ordinance was meant to provide the general standards, set of regulatory standards for all vacant buildings, as you know. And these included site maintenance, building maintenance, fire safety, security, and emergency boarding standards for all properties that were vacant. And this was specifically done to kind of mitigate some of the issues that we were having with vacant properties across the city, to give them a sense of the minimum standards that the city was looking for in regards to keeping these things ready, move-in ready, and not a nuisance to our community. And we can move on, Paul, thank you. So currently, after assessment, we have about 83 properties, and this does not include the city vacant properties. We pulled those out for the purposes of this report. Currently 46 vacant lots, 19 commercial, about 14 residential, 3 under active demolition, and 1 recent fire, as you well know, at Mission Boulevard there, the old Chalk Center, I believe. And we can forward that. So after the initial evaluation of the program starting to get, prior to COVID, I'll say, as we looked at the data, we could see the, and my little graph is skewed for some reason, we could see the pool of vacant properties kind of pulling toward the core of the city. And this is a combination of properties that were, the homes, single family homes, which is the icon in blue, the vacant lots, which is the green tree icon, and then the buildings, both commercial and commercial and industrial buildings, which is identified by the building icon there. One other noticeable area were along the Mission corridor, where we had another pool of vacant properties as well. And I'm sorry that graph is skewed off, but that actually represents a circle outlining kind of a radius there. And we can move on, Paul, thank you. And before I get into this, I had updated it, which was my missed recording here. The initial, after we transited into COVID-19, of course, the city was burdened by some things that we had to let go, unfortunately, to kind of make a balance towards the budget. And part of that stuff, unfortunately, was letting go of our interim position for the dedicated code person. In addition to that, staff was kind of reallocated towards COVID response under the EOC, so we had to take some time away from that. And that kind of pushed us away from the vacant building program to postpone it, so to speak, until this quarter. And so what we had planned to do this quarter, starting in September, was to revamp that program looking at current staff usage. And so we created a sub-team outside of having the dedicated staff person specifically geared towards responding to the vacant property. And then this first quarter, this last part of this quarter here, our focus is primarily on the 19 primary high priority properties, both found in the core and along Mission Boulevard in most areas. And that's what you see here. These are the 19 most egregious properties that we have in the city that we're actively responding to right now. And we can forward that. And I think the good part of this whole thing is, even though we're kind of late responding to it because of the delays that we've had, we have had some positives coming out of it. As you can see right here, one of our biggest ones, Maple and Main, is actually resolving itself under active demolition right now and preparing to go through a permitting process for development. Unfortunately, the holiday bill is kind of doing the same thing. It's more of a summary abatement by fire due to the recent fire at the place, but that is also resolving to a vacant lot over the next few months, we anticipate, and those two structures should be resolved. I'm hoping actually prior to the end of this year. As you know, with COVID, there's been some casualties and some buildings funneling into the program. And I've kind of presented some of that here. This is just a few that we've started to catch out there. This is Firestone at Mission Boulevard there, and our little taco shop down on Upper B Street. Both of these buildings are looked at as potential candidates to be enrolled. The taco shop definitely, so that one's active, getting a registration notice at the moment. Firestone has actually been responding appropriately for their building. We did have to clean up a transient camp there at the site, as well as a large amount of trash and debris, but the property management company associated with Firestone responded fairly well and fairly quick and secured the site with the fencing and is actively maintaining it. And so we're in close contact with those guys, and we hope that they'll be good stewards to the vacant building as we move forward, and it will not actually enroll in the program. And we're hoping that any other properties that are faced with the conditions related to COVID, if they come into a vacancy status, that they kind of maintain those properties moving forward. So just to kind of update, as of right now, we've had those 19 properties on active notice with their registration and pending registration fees of about $48,000. The remaining 64 properties will be addressed towards the beginning of the year as we finish up these first egregious 19. And then we should have all of those enrolled in the program and moving full steam ahead starting the first part of the third quarter here. And this is just kind of a timeline. I did correct some grammar issues on this slide here, so excuse me. They're not showing here, but as you can see, we started that initial timeline at the end of this last quarter here. Starting at September, we're getting those high priority registrations out. And then moving forward actively right now with the notice of violations associated with those properties, and then getting them into our monitoring queue starting in November. And then hopefully by January, we'll have all those properties actively engaged in their registration notice, and towards April and June, have full monitoring for all of these properties, towards the end of the year next year. So. And that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, definitely open to any questions you guys might have for it.
I had a question about the what you just said. That all 19 of the programs are going to be, all of the ones on the original list you're hoping to have resolved by next spring, not just those few specific ones.
Yeah, we're actively hoping, actually, we're on schedule for those. So towards the end of January, all of our properties in our listings will have active registration notice requirements and be enrolled in the program. That is the hopes, unless we get any requests for hearings or anything like that. And then immediately following that, they'll all get their detailed notice of violation for corrections. And that's going to allow us to do any abatements, corrective actions, or anything like that.
All right, thank you. Do either Councilmember Mendel or Councilmember Salinas have questions? Both of you. So I'll start with Mark. I saw his.
Yeah, just a couple of, and I don't know. I don't know if I read this in the, when we first started doing this in the beginning, but more of a basic question. The money that we generate in this program, what are the benefits to, are there benefits to the property owner? I mean, or is it just, they're paying into the program, and what are what do they get? What do we get?
I guess to be clear with that one, the benefits are more or less to the community. The benefits are for some abatements. As you know, some of those abatements are fairly expensive. especially with the move towards clearboarding, and that's one of the newer standards that we have in the ordinance. But that comes down the line as we get into problems that have recurrent break-ins. We'll implement that measure as we need to, but the goal is to keep these properties move-in ready. Unfortunately, there's a cost to that, whether through abatement or hiring contractors to implement that. And that's kind of, where the majority of those funds are going to, in addition to, of course, staff costs and things like that. So I look at it as really a benefit to the community, really.
Yeah. And so if there needs to be abatement, we step in, do all the abating, and is that on top of, does the building owner, the property owner, do they also have to pay for abatement, or that those fees basically cover so if it gets so bad, the property owner calls us and say, okay, we'll go in and we'll take care of it. Is that basically what it is?
Yeah, so the fees are kind of work in two ways. They're kind of meant to supplement or help out the abatements, especially the lighter abatements, because those fees by no way address more significant abatements that may be needed, like demolitions or anything like that. So, of course, when we get to those heavier abatements, if we have to do abatement warrant or through a summary abatement or anything like that, then of course we'll recover those costs through assessment, through property taxes or anything like that, any additional costs.
So if we need to front the money, we can do it, and then
basically, yeah, we can start it and then get the ball rolling. We're not
great. And then one last question, and I don't know if this is related, it might be slightly unrelated, but I noticed over here on Mission. Well, where the old King Covers used to be? So King Covers doesn't exist anymore. They closed down. But there's a new business there. But what I noticed, what they're doing is, and I don't know if it's temporary or if it's permanent. It looks pretty permanent, but they boarded up all the windows. Plywood, and I don't know if you guys know what they're doing or what, but I wasn't sure what they were doing. It looks like there's new occupants in there.
A lot of that's been going on. A lot of it could be from the recent political unrest, unfortunately. Okay. And we're dealing with that. We're trying to be a little bit lenient on that type of thing. Okay. But at the same time, letting people know that, hey, it's a little bit safer now. You can start to kind of unboard and open your business up as we kind of progress. And that's kind of what we're educating people on. So, we hope they positively buy into that and kind of start to address those concerns. But then again, on the other side of that, we also do have those who kind of like to hide behind boarded windows and boarded doors and do things without, under the shade of boards, so to speak.
Well, I say that because even that, sort of, the image of that in the neighborhood doesn't look good when you got this. I mean, it's a relatively beautiful building, right? It's got that old sort of, brick, and it's kind of like an Art Deco kind of building, sort of vibe to it, but it's all boarded up.
Yeah. I agree. I think, having the boards on any of these buildings are, essentially a nuisance to me. I get some of the purpose of them because of the situation, our nation is in right now. But at the same time, we probably need to look at identifying a clear timeline for that kind of stuff to start disappearing. And so I'll be talking with Laura to see what that looks like, over the next few months as we kind of have conversations with the city manager's office, about which way to go for some of that stuff to kind of work with the public a little bit better. But I anticipate most of this stuff will disappear once we come up with, a strong plan to kind of look at the timelines for it and when it's appropriate to start disappearing. And we'll have clear-cut policy on what's required and what's not. So when it is time for those things to go, I anticipated them leaving very, very quickly, and the buildings restoring back to their natural state.
Okay. And then one last thing, I have noted, I haven't noticed, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but the that taco stand over on B over there, the picture that you just showed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I know that that's a new applicant that's in the process now. So the faster they, paint over all that graffiti or something like that, I'm sure
Yeah.
will stop any future graffiti. But
Yeah,
anyway.
we have a wonderful graffiti contractor. We just started 3 new contracts, one with a heavy abatement company that also our fire department uses, and 2 smaller contracts, one specifically for graffiti and the other one for nuisance debris and site cleaning and things like that. And those are fairly solid contracts. They're really good contractors. They've been really responsive. And the graffiti person that we have does 99% match on almost anything. So we're pretty confident into his abilities. And actually recently we've started a graffiti relief program to help out with especially the core of the city and those businesses and single family property owners who are kind of burdened by repetitive, crime related graffiti. And actually that program is stepping up to do some free abatements as well. And the graffiti pretty much is gone typically within 24 hours or something like that. But a lot of times that's reaching out to the owner, finding who they are, getting an agreement to do those abatements.
And one last thing is the old Salvation Army building on 8th Street. I know that's,
oh yeah,
everyone has eyes on that. So I'm not gonna
You don't have to say anymore. You just, yes, right. Please.
Funk in the room.
Yeah. You need
It's
to
there.
say no more. That one is one of our priorities in the core downtown, of course. We're aware of what's going on with the camps as well as the structures. We have some robust plans for it, so we'll be moving forward with that in a fairly short amount of time. So we'll be partnering out with Jessica Lobodon's team in Bax to help out with the homeless persons and getting those folks to the right place. And then subsequently clean up the site and get the site back to a move-in status. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A comment on the Salvation Army site too, Councilmember Solis. Economic Development staff has actively reached out to the property owner. We talk to them or ping them in some fashion every 2 to 3 weeks. We have been sending them tenants. We have been sending them, ideas and just really pushing them to reactivate or just do something with the site. So yeah, it's on our radar. We are trying to be as aggressive as we can.
Do you get any response from them?
We have. So initially, staff, Catherine Wilson and myself did meet with their broker of record and to share some of the ideas that the city staff had. We shared information about the previously entitled project, and it was all really good. And they were, actively marketing it. And then the market kind of turned down for their ownership, decided not to invest. And so they've gone pretty quiet on us. So much so we've been kind of taking a back seat to let our peers in code enforcement really start waving the stick around to really encourage them to
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely hoping that after the next notice, they'll make some moves on that property within the next couple of weeks here.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mendel.
Thank you. So thank you, Mayor. Phil, you said something that surprised me. At least I think I heard you say something that surprised me. Sort of hinted that not every long-term vacant property is in the program. And it was my understanding that, something's vacant for a few weeks. No, that doesn't need to register. But anything that's got a long-term vacancy, everything that has a long-term vacancy has to register, period, no exceptions. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, the ordinance is specifically geared towards those properties that are in violation of the standards of the ordinance. And this is one of the clear points that was made by council during the adoption. I think our initial approach was to make it for everyone, but we wanted to make sure after conversations that we focus the standards on those properties that had issues that we were concerned about. That being said, all of those properties that do have issues are enrolled in that program. what we're doing on the side of that for properties that are vacant but still in compliance, we are monitoring those, and so we do track those in our monitoring sheet. Should they fall off the bandwagon, and we need to kind of
Okay, so that is, my memory is not perfect, but that is not what I remember. Maybe it got changed before the final adoption, but my understanding, every long-term vacancy has to register. And then the follow-up action taken by staff is, all right, for the ones that are poorly maintained, then there's additional actions beyond just registering. If that's not the case, and that doesn't make sense to me, because I don't expect you or your team to be driving around the city looking for vacant properties. The requirement should be that they have to register with us, and then we sort of monitor the ones we know about to make sure they're not in crappy condition.
Oh yeah,
So,
my misunderstanding your question, Councilman. The registration requirement is there for all vacant.
for all long-term vacancies.
Yeah, it's just the monitoring
Right.
part of it.
Okay.
The monitoring part.
Got it.
Yeah.
And
Sorry
that
about
makes sense. That's okay. Thank you for that clarification.
that.
So that's good. There's a couple of properties that looked like they weren't on that list, but I will send addresses separately rather than talking about them individually.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
But I do want to talk about one particular problem, which is the demolition of condemned buildings on these sites and the lack of speed with which that has been happening for many, many years. I mean, there are sites on Mission that have been vacant, boarded up, run down POSs for decades. Some of them, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but certainly for a decade, that need to get demolished. And so I really want to see us figure out how to accelerate that process. Maple and Main, Holiday Bowl, the former Haymont Shopping Center for many, many years are excellent examples, but there are many, many more. So do we have the tools that we need and the staffing that we need to accelerate that process without the city having to shoulder the entire burden? Or is that going to be something where it requires me or one of my colleagues to raise holy hell to get it to the level, to be perfectly blunt about it, that staff jumps on it and says, okay, of the 12 vacant buildings that are run down and need to be demolished, one of the council members raising hell about this one, so now we have to pay attention to it, which is not, in my opinion, a good system, right? I'd rather see something that's a little bit more proactive. So
let me try to answer that a little bit. There are a couple ways that we're moving ahead trying to address that. One is with conditions of approval. As you know, on new entitlements, we're saying, within the entitlement period, we're putting in a condition that those buildings must be demoed within 30 to 60 days or something like that. So we're moving ahead, we're trying. But then, of course, as you know, there's a lot that didn't have that requirement. So one of the issues is, if it's a smaller project, say it was a single family, maybe a smaller project, there might be the ability for the city to move in, use our demolition contractors that Phil just mentioned, and go ahead and proceed. If after we notice the property owner and they do not comply within a sufficient time frame of notice,
even if it's a year,
right? We could do that. And the thing is, some of the the Holiday Bowl site, for example, is super expensive. I mean, it was came in at $690,000 for that demolition, but it will probably be even higher because there's some hazardous material that needs to be removed. So in that case, the city, the city's fronting over $700,000. That's a substantial cost. If it were a smaller project, I'd say yes. We have $50,000 to $80,000 in our budget in code enforcement that we can use to do a demo or abatements, things like that. But that's much smaller. That's a smaller scale. We don't have, for a big demolition project like a Maple and Main, it's just very costly. So we haven't budgeted for that.
Well, and it's not a great solution. It's not an ideal solution for us to be paying for these things and then hoping we get some of our money back 20 years from now with no interest, right? That's not what I'm necessarily advocating for.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a follow-on set of changes to this ordinance in the future that will require, penalties, fines, something where we identify, look, here are the 20 vacant buildings that just need to be torn down.
Yeah.
And then some sort of notice to the property owner saying, you have until, 1 year from now to tear it down, or some heavy fines start kicking in. That will incentivize them, hopefully, to do it sooner than waiting for that development project that could be 20 years into the future. And I know we don't have that solved yet. And I guess I'm asking for us to be thinking about how to solve that going forward, because it's just a long-term issue that's going to continue to annoy all of us, every one of us, until we figure out how to make it painful enough that property owners will demolish their dilapidated buildings.
Yeah, and I can comment on that, council member. I think one of the most important things that we can do, especially as a code enforcement division, we're tasked with a large amount of that stuff, is follow some of the things that we've have in place and that we've just put in place, and that basically is the paper trail, right, behind most of this stuff. In past jurisdictions I've worked with, that's really where it starts. And we just have to be focused on getting the notice and getting a clean notice out to identify every issue with that building. Because I think the truth of the matter is, even though we may want them demolished, there might not be sufficient evidence enough to move forward with an active summary abatement for demolition. But the code does allow us to move forward through abatement, correction, or demolition. And so those are the three highlights that we typically issue on any order to give that owner the opportunity to take one of those paths, right? And so to me, it's just a matter of making sure we implement these codes that we have, and making sure that we have everything in place to hit the markers that we need to hit. And I think part of that started to take place this year when we implemented our first kind of receivership, or actually our second, with the partnership of the city attorney's office. We'll be doing more of that. And that will actually be a step in our process as we move towards these buildings that are having some significant problems. And so we hope to get those resolved.
Good. Last question, easy one, I think. How would you like us to report buildings that should be registered and getting attention when we see them? Is it an email to the city manager? Is there an Access Hayward category for this? How do you want to hear about those things?
Our Access Hayward is always a great tool for it. They can also come in directly if it's coming from you folks, directly from the city manager's office to us as well. We have a lead for it. One of our senior inspectors is lead for the task force that's heading up our vacant building program. So that'll go directly to her. And then they'll immediately assign a staff person to it, and they'll put it into the program and start doing what they need to do to get those things up to code.
Okay, thank you. Have fun with us.
All right.
All right. Do what you can, and what's within the law and what's within our ordinance. I did remember that when we passed this, I mean, we may have said every building needs to register, but we really wanted to use this to go after the egregious ones and not every single house that might be vacant and on the rental market for a while, or, I think it's partly also complaint driven, because we do get a lot of complaints. And, if we just keep piling fines on, they are placed as liens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Ultimately, we own the property in some of these cases, and we're good. We have a history. I mean, experience in developing properties now. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. Anyway, my idea is that you just make it economically painful, and they lose the property if they can't take care of it, because, we can't have this, but it is to be the egregious and probably the properties that are visible in the community. Now, I know, I have a property near me that is all, I think egregious also needs to be part of the factor, but that's my recollection of how we set this up, that we really wanted, to have a way to deal with the buildings that were just just generating a lot of complaints from people and a lot of grumbling, and so my request is just do what you can, do as much as you can.
We will. I have high hopes about the program. I think I was in, when I was dealing with both Haymont and the Tower, and I think at some part Mervyn's, back when Mervyn's was there, we've kind of piecemealed all of those properties together with the ordinance that we had to resolve them. With the vacant building ordinance, it gives us a clear path of standards. And then from there, we can move towards things like receivership, which keeps us out of the picture financially, or things like summary abatement through a warrant or something like that if needed. But it gives us the tools to kind of direct these things along a path that we should have done a long time ago, I think.
And the ones that are the most visible and the most and prominent, like the Holiday Bowl site is, should be our front.
I want to commend Phil and the code enforcement team because, as we were having these conversations, really bringing some good ideas forward about clearboarding versus using plywood, which is really helpful in terms of keeping people out of the buildings. And so that's been a crucial part of this to help us manage unsafe situations that could potentially result in, members of our community being killed, or our fire department personnel or police personnel being injured or killed in responding to these vacant buildings. So because there are people inside of them. So I think that was a really important priority. And I just want to commend the staff for bringing that forward as part of the program.
All right. So if there's nothing else, we'll move on to our next item. But thank you so much and keep up the work. So the next item is on our, it's a report, and we got a staff report on this one, on our small business resiliency grant program and impacts, and an upcoming small business assistance program or programs. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. Catherine Ralston will be doing the presentation, but just as an introduction, you may recall in March of this year, in response to the COVID crisis, Economic Development team rolled out a COVID-19 Small Business Resiliency Grant Program. We did do a report back to this committee before the summer break on the businesses that were recipients or grantees under that program. Today's presentation will present the results of a follow-on survey along to address the committee's need for or request for further information about the economic impacts of this program. So Specialist Wilson will kind of run us through some of the self-reported economic impacts of these businesses' experiences. And then that will lead into a transition of a discussion of our upcoming round of micro enterprise grant program efforts. Catherine?
Sure. So Paul, it's not letting me share.
I think I read.
There we go. All right, so we initially had our COVID-19 Business Resiliency Grant Program. This utilized $380,000 of our general fund dollars that we were able to reallocate from other economic development programs that we knew we probably wouldn't be able to implement this year due to potential shelter in place. And as part of that, we were able to issue $5,000 grants to our businesses that met the criteria. And those criteria were businesses with 25 or fewer employees, or were independent restaurants regardless of the employee count. The business had to be located anywhere in Hayward and then demonstrate an economic injury. Under the program, we were able to fund 76 businesses, and then we also received funding through the Relief Fund, and we were able to fund 8 additional businesses that was then funneled through the Rotary Foundation. So under that grant program, we received 700 applications in the first day that the application was available, so in 11 hours. And that first 700 applications reported over $43 million in economic injury. Overall, we had 1,600 applications that were received in that first week. Some of the highlights from that, we had 20 different industry types that were represented by the businesses that received the grants. So we had bakeries, manufacturers, restaurants, grocery, retailers, beauty and barber shops, and entertainment uses. Those 76 grantees employed 649 people. And some of those grantees responded with efforts to support the community. So a couple examples, Parker's Crazy Cookies, which is a commercial bakery, they donated over 500 cookies to a Hayward shelter, and Yogurtland donated N95 masks to our Hayward Fire Department. So after all of the funding was distributed to those grantees, we then sent a follow-up survey to them to ask about the process. How was the process for them for applying for the grant, how the business used the funds, and then what were their reopening plans. Next slide. So under the grant application process, overall, so the businesses found out about the program from city email was the majority answer from there. And then there was property owners, the Chamber of Commerce, or watching the city council video. They found that our city webpage was very easy to find. In all of the emails that we sent out, we included the links. They thought that the application forms were very easy to understand, and many of them were able to submit everything on the first try. We had a few that had to submit things multiple times through the email to get it through the process. And then how the businesses used the funds. 82% were able to use the funds to help keep their employees employed during that time. And then also 78% also applied some of the money towards their rent. We did see about 2% of the repliees say that their landlord waived their rent, and 20% said there just wasn't enough dollars to spread around between employees and rent. We also then asked them, looking forward, of how COVID was impacting their business and what their process, what was going to be changing as they moved forward and to the goal of reopening. So many of them had said that they had switched over to takeout only, reduced hours, or were doing online only. A few businesses were closed altogether. And that represented like our personal services, our hair salons and beauty salons, which we just saw reopen here in the county. And what changes in the workforce has your business had to make? Many had to reduce the hours of their staff. Many at the time when we sent out the survey said that they did not lay off their employees. They tried to keep their employees employed as much as possible. A lot of them were able to allow their employees to work remotely. So then moving forward towards their reopening plan, 84% were planning on reopening. We did have 3 say that they were going to be closing, and that represented 2 businesses at the time. And then 13% were still not sure. It was just depending on how long the shelter in place was going to be lasting, and what did the reopening look like going forward. And of the businesses that responded, 64% at the time said that they had a reopening plan ready to go. So they had been working on distancing tables, what other measures, PPE measures had to be put in place. 25% were working on it, and 11% said we have no idea. A few of those were restaurants, and I did follow up with those restaurants as we started allowing for outdoor dining, or even at the time to-go orders only, trying to come up with creative solutions for them, including things like offering family meals to go. And what we were seeing in some other jurisdictions, some of the restaurants were offering grocery purchases. So trying to offer creative ideas for those businesses to help them through that time. Next slide. We then asked, would they need to hire new staff? Most of them said no, they had their staff, or if some said that they might have to hire a few new staff. And then we had a few businesses that they said they had let everyone go and they would need to rehire everyone. And then their plan for reopening, what did they need help on? So the biggest things that they needed help on was understanding what city programs might be coming available to help bring customers back, what other city programs for regulations, any new requirements for the state, and any new cleaning requirements. A few businesses also said for the hiring staff as they moved forward. And then finally, we had a question for our restaurants if they were interested in participating in the city activities to bring customers back. We had 2 overwhelming answers. Yes, we want to participate, and then a maybe. And the majority of those, yes, we want to participate, were located in our downtown, and this would help drive our B Street closures that we did in June, July, and August downtown to help try to bring the customers back to our downtown. And now we have the more permanent outdoor dining, which still continues to be very successful for the businesses. So we also had an open-ended question and offered the business the opportunity to share any of their comments. And overall, everyone was very grateful to the city for offering the support. There was also comments of how easy the process was, and that they applied for many of the different programs out there. We were the only one that even just responded to their application to let them know that they were either getting money or not getting money. All of these received money. And so they were just all very grateful for the city of Hayward, and we included a full list of those comments in your packet to review. So now we move on to our next round of funding, which is our Small Business Assistance Program for the 2021 funding. So this year, in previous years, we've had $75,000 for to give out. And this year we will have a total of 150,000. So we have 100,000 coming from our normal CDBG funding source, and then we are receiving an additional 50,000 from the CARE Act funding from the Community Services Division. So we will once again be issuing $5,000 grants to businesses meeting the criteria. Under this program, there is a limit on the employees, so we can only choose businesses that have 5 or fewer employees. They can be located anywhere in Hayward. They do have to have a brick and mortar location and a valid business license. So we will be able to fund up to 30 businesses this year. Eligible expenses, and it is a reimbursement program, so they do have to submit receipts in order to receive payment. Unlike our COVID grant, it was straight $5,000 grant. We didn't ask for receipts. Under this program, they can cover same expenses as last year: inventory, equipment, furniture, signage, and websites. In addition, we've also added PPE, so masks, gloves, sanitizer, plexiglass dividers, and then any outdoor dining related infrastructure or other items needed for the business to operate in accordance with new industry guidelines. So the selection of the business, we will identify the businesses from the database of the grant applications. So as I said, we had 700 applications on that first day, and we were able to fund 76. We logged all 700 of those received on the first day and are using that list to now lead into that next funding cycle. So we will sort through, find those that have 5 and fewer employees, and start with that. We're also going to continue to use our principles for an equitable and compassionate community to make sure that we're inviting businesses to participate in the program that are a true representation of Hayward. And then we expect to have the 30 businesses identified by the end of December and allow them adequate time to submit their receipts. They need to have everything turned into us. We request by the end of March. So the next steps is we'll be updating the application forms. We do need to have them submit some additional information that we did not require under the COVID program. So we'll update the application forms. Then we'll review the business, the list of businesses from the previous grant process, contact those businesses, make sure they're still in business, all of their business applications are still valid, and confirm their interest in participating in the program. Like I said, they do need to turn in the receipts. They can turn in receipts back to January 2021 is what the guidelines say for the CDBG program. And then we will report back to CEDC on the grantees and the impacts of the program, such as we did tonight. And I'm available for any questions.
You're on mute, Mayor.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, I said we would start with Council Member Mendel this time, and he shook his head. Oh, so okay, so he was reading my lips, I guess, that, you know. And Council Member Salinas.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of observations. One is, it was good to see that the one of the largest concerns, or one of the largest biggest asks, was to bring customers back. And I'll tell you from firsthand experience, Saturday night, I went and took takeout from Aquafarina, and I was so impressed. I even texted the city manager, and I just wanted to let staff know that whatever is happening on that corner, it's right. It is the right stuff. I mean, the tone, the mood, the tempo. I mean, they had jazz. I mean, they had outdoor music. I mean, it was like street party light. I mean, it was great. I mean, and there was a lot of people, and people were socially distant and so forth. So I say that because I think we have the creativity, the ingenuity to bring people back, you know, and I also think we have a model to bring people back too. And I also want to say that the Dirty Bird, I mean, I've driven past the Dirty Bird on some evenings, I mean, late into the evening, 9, 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock. And it is mellow out there, and everyone's just chilling and just, you know, vibing, and it's great. So, anyways, it was good to see that the big concern is to bring customers back. It just kind of shows that I think businesses are, you know, they're not necessarily relying on the city. I did see, you know, businesses would like more, you know, support from the city, you know, programs and stuff like that, which is fine. I don't, you know, I mean, that's great, but there wasn't a big imbalance between all from the city and nothing, you know, and no work on, you know, from them. And so I think if we focused resources and we focused attention on bringing people back, kind of like what the outdoor street parties do, kind of like what the Mariachi Festival does, of course, not that grand of scale, but put those marketing systems in place and put that outreach system in place. I think that's great. But the other thing I just wanted to raise that, and I'm getting a lot of texts from local merchants, not only on B and Main and the main downtown core businesses and retailers, but I'm also getting them from you know, A Street, Harder, Jackson, Tennyson, is cleanliness. You know, I don't want to gross everybody out on some of the pictures and, you know, some of the calls that I'm getting from folks. But you know, I think part of our plan and part of their plan could be to invest in cleaning the surrounding area of their retail establishment, because of COVID, there has been, I mean, whether it's homeless, whether it's, you know, just debris of just not being clean for 6 months, you know, that could really help out local merchants. Just one big, deep, thorough cleaning, both, you know, well, outside, we can control outside, but really assisting them with inside. But anyways, I have other questions, but I'll stop here.
Yeah, well, I'll just echo that, you know, obviously, and I know we're working on it, and it's just a matter, but I think especially in some of the places where people might be, I mean, I'm interested in whether there's outdoor, I mean, I know there are outdoor people are having people eat outdoor in other parts of the city too. But unfortunately there it's not in any great concentration. And I think that's why, and what you see going on that corner of Main and B is that there really are two establishments, because a big part of that is the music, and that's the bistro. And I think they have food. I've seen people eating there. So it's two right together. And I don't know I know we tend to eat when we at Aqua Arena as opposed to going to the bistro. And one night it was just really, really loud music, and it was, it was okay. I mean, I was glad to see people enjoying it, but ever since then, that was probably a couple months ago. And ever since then, I think when I've been down there during this time, the music is much more appropriate for, being enjoyed while you're dining. And I think where it really works is where there's a little bit of a concentration. We see it at the other end of B Street with the area around the cinema place, and which is really sometimes been too crowded, and then a little bit, I guess, if you have Buffalo Bills, and I guess Plate, I don't know, is Plate totally shut down now?
They're still in operation.
They still are in operation. Okay. Okay. But there it's like three little clusters. I think Sapporo is doing it. They're up there at the end of Main Street, and they're kind of all on their own. Bon Appetito, I know, has a deck in the, so they're doing it there. So, it's kind of like the layout. We discovered another restaurant that we really like is now doing takeout when they hadn't been. So we did that the other night. And it's just, I think maybe just doing something to get people, I know people are sympathetic. I know people miss what they're doing. Some people still don't feel comfortable going out. We just did the thing on the delivery services to cap the fees on that, but just whatever we can do to let people throughout the city know that all of this is happening, and please go out and support your local businesses now more than ever. They really need you. And you may be surprised to check that some of the ones you thought were closed have reopened or whatever. I mean, sadly, the opposite is true too, that some of them have closed, but I know there were I know the vast majority of the response you got was, was really positive. There were a couple that were very, and I think it must be really heartbreaking to lose a business that you've tried to build up. And I don't know who those were from exactly, but, I suspect that it was just out of a sense of desperation. But I feel pretty good about the response that you got. And I know that you guys were out really early on, just on top of it right away, had one of the early programs. And so we were really proud of that. So thank you for the report, and we're going to have to keep on doing whatever we can. Did you want to say something, Councilmember Rendell?
Yeah, briefly. I don't have anything to add to Catherine's report. That's great. Move forward. But I wanted to echo what Councilmember Salinas said about the garbage out there. There is so much trash and graffiti, and just it just looks horrible all across town. It hasn't been this bad in years, maybe a decade. And I know that the task force hasn't been out there cleaning up, but clearly our staff aren't cleaning up at the same level they were before. We really need to figure out how to solve that, because it just makes it unpleasant to be outside everywhere. And that includes the downtown, it includes our shopping centers, and it's going to turn people off. And really, I worry about losing the momentum that we've built up over the last 10 years. So anything we can do to assist in that area, I think, has a strong economic development component in addition to just, quality of life. So thank you for bringing that up, Mark.
Are we able to get more people out there? That's not economic development, that's maintenance.
We have the same level of crews out. They're all back on generally a regular schedule. I think they're just trying to catch up from a few months of people, not being out there cleaning. The level of homeless encampments has escalated. So trying to go and help clean those up. I have add on my list to talk to our maintenance services director now that we are not doing the street closures every weekend in downtown, where we were spending overtime, maybe using that overtime to get some crews out there to do some sort of makeup cleaning, and use, spending some overtime dollars to just try and get caught up with things. So those are some of the conversations I'm going to be having with our team.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, with that,
Can I make a quick comment?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Kelly and staff, I just wanted to, when you do talk to, the maintenance, streets and maintenance, one is please tell them that they are doing a bang up job out there. The other day, I think it was Sunday, I had, or it might have been Saturday, I had a few hours. So I drove through the Hayward Promise neighborhood, the 40 streets of the Hayward Promise neighborhood. And there were and I understand that it's the first of the month, but I mean, it was literally entire apartments dumped out into the sidewalks. And so I went and I had 40 individual, new cases on Access Hayward. This morning, by about 12 o'clock or so, they probably done about 80% of them. I mean, so I think the maintenance crew, I mean, I see them everywhere. The trucks are always full. And so I know that they're, working hard. So anyway, I just wanted to please tell Todd and his crew that they're out there. I know they're behind, and I know that, but they're doing a great job out there. So please know that.
Yeah, I thank you for that, because I've seen evidence too that they have been out and tried to clean up some of the stuff that's been around, and some of it I know is encampments that we're limited in what we can do. So with that, we will move on and do any. I'm sorry. We have the next item on the agenda is the future meeting topics. Do you have anything to say about that, staff?
I do, Mayor. So in November, the next CDC meeting, we'll be bringing an item to committee that you heard at full council regarding the exploring different commercial options for the frontage of the Mission Crossings project on Mission. This is the project where MLC is building the townhomes, and the frontage was to be a hotel. And the hotel developer and property owner has indicated that they're having financial challenges, and they would like to explore different options to activate that property. And so they'll be coming to this committee to discuss and provide an update on their latest ideas for feedback. And then one thing that's not in here will be brought to full council. Staff is working on a panel. One comment from this committee has been the need to have this committee and council updated regularly on the long-term or short and long-term impacts of COVID-19 on the real estate market. And so staff is putting together a panel tentatively for October 20th to come to council with 5 different commercial real estate experts from retail, industrial, office, hotel, and the multifamily housing sector. And these experts will conduct a brief presentation on national and local trends to follow up on that. So we're looking forward to that panel in October.
All right. Either of the committee members want to? No, Al.
So I mean, I'm raising my hand here electronically. I don't know. I guess you can't see it.
Yeah. I always.
So, thank you, Paul, Thank you, Paul, for mentioning Mission Crossings. I was going to ask about that. I'm hearing through the grapevine that the hotel developer associated with that project has the mistaken impression that council doesn't want the hotel anymore, which is 100% wrong. And so if you have the ability to, maybe place a phone call and assure them that we very, very, very much want the hotel still, and, before they give up and, so if you have the chance to reassure them, I would appreciate that before they come in November.
I had multiple conversations with Charles McCaig, and he has had conversations with the hotel developer. They do, MLC does have a right to repurchase that hotel property from the hotel developer. So Charles and I have been discussing some various options and looking at some different things that hopefully he'll be willing to present, or they'll be able to present at the November meeting.
Okay, but I would, I think a direct conversation with the hotel developer from staff would be of value. Let's not rely on.
Yeah, we got
it. Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you. Mark?
Paul, we have a hand raised under attendees.
Yes. Oh, please go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't ask for public comment on the last item. So if you would like to comment on, but anyway, so is it Ms.
The commenter is Mr. Huggett. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Mr. Huggett. Was he here earlier?
No, he was not.
All right. Let me just first ask Councilmember Salinas, did you have any committee announcements? Or
no, I just I didn't want to create more work, but and I don't know whether this is worth a report back, but basically just monitoring what businesses want regarding cleaning and outside cleaning, and I don't know, I'm sure it's of course trash and debris just kind of blowing in their way or just being left by homeless, but kind of what might they want in terms of cleaning and stuff like that, and how can we help? That's it, and we can just monitor that.
Okay, thanks. And I'm sorry, back on the topic of future agenda items, I was just going to bring up the meeting that I had with members of the planning staff. And I'm sorry, you were there too, Paul, on the Gillig property. Are we going to add that into the list of future agenda topics?
Staff is still communicating with our peers in planning, as well as the Hines, the applicant, whether that would be coming back to this committee for review would be the correct path. So,
okay, all right. I just wanted to throw it out there because either us or council eventually, right? Or
absolutely. Okay. Commission and council, correct.
Okay, so now we will let Mr. Huggett make an announcement if he wants, since he wasn't here earlier so.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate the chance to make a couple of comments, just two items. I really want to back up Councilman Salinas's comments about the maintenance team, the streets team. Nobody works harder on our special events, and we're sure looking forward to when we can gather as a community again for events like street parties and mariachi festival and light up the season, and with the ice rink and such. Today, I drove into my parking lot and there was a belligerent homeless person flinging trash into the air. And we had a confrontation, which of course I didn't handle as well as I could have, but this person last night set up a camp in my parking lot in the bushes next to my building. And so I've discovered that there is really no one place to go, whether it's the streets team or a BODE. I called the police department at 10 and they still haven't arrived, and this person is still here, so I'm just gonna let it ride. But just the same, this is an issue that I've had with some business people, and not knowing what's the clearinghouse, where's the place to call when you've got this kind of thing going on, because it has resulted in all kinds of trash everywhere, and then trying to avoid a face-to-face situation. So I did go through what we encourage downtown businesses to do, and go to Access Hayward, and my response was, we'll address your issue within 10 days. So, and I realized that might have just been an automatic response, kind of an issue, but still, I think if there were a clearinghouse kind of a thing to deal with trash and stuff besides access, then that would be possibly something to look into.
Okay.
So again, realizing the restrictions in this day and age.
All right. Well, I know that this is a problem throughout the city and especially in the downtown. And I'd like to see more coordination with the downtown Hayward improvement area people too, because they were supposed to be providing some additional security and cleaning services in the downtown.
Yes, Mayor. They've been working, ED staff and Catherine Ralston, who sits on the board of the DHIA. This has been an ongoing issue with them, and staff is still working with them to encourage them to continue to do the scheduled street washing. I drove in this morning and they're power washing Foothill. So they have been trying to power wash. They've had some issues with that as some of their contractors can't do some of the power washing, especially on B Street. Because of folks camping in the alcoves of the storefronts.
Okay.
And so we're aware, and we're trying to work in unison. We've connected them, the DHA staff, to Monica Davis's group in community services, and just a little bit on dealing with some of the homeless issues to map out a better procedure and coordination among the two groups.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. With that, on that sort of down note, I do hope by the time we meet again that, you know, we have some progress towards some of these things. And I think we all understand that staff, all of us have been under tremendous pressure the last few months, and there are a lot of competing interests here and problems. And we just have to prioritize and work as hard as we can to address them. So anyway, with that, but thank you for the other more positive presentations that you made this evening. And with that, we are adjourned until, I believe, next month. We're having a meeting. Oh, my thing went down again.
November 2nd.
November 2nd. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and good evening.
Thank you.